Hi, welcome. Today I want to talk with you about sunburned tomato leaves, the causes, the prevention, and the care for plants that are affected with sunburned. It's that time of year here. They're a common challenge for many tomato gardeners. The issue arises when tomato plants get too much direct sunlight and it causes the leaves to discolor, to wilt, or even be scorched. So, in the article for this video, you'll get a little more information about how to recognize it. There's some pictures on there, how to tell it apart a little bit from other issues that your tomato plants might be having. In the South, in the deep South, where the heat is extreme, this is particularly a problem. It often happens after you've pruned away too many leaves, or when a disease impacts your plants and you've had to cut your leaves back. Without the protection, more of the leaf surface is exposed to the direct sun. The Where you are determines a lot about if you even have to deal with this or not. Like I said, in the deep South, where the blazing sun, it's up at 7 and it's 85, 90 degrees at 7, and then it's down at 8 or 9 o'clock and it's 80 degrees then. It's been under a lot of hot sun. Under such conditions, it's not uncommon for tomato plants to show signs of distress. They might even develop pale, discolored patches, which are a telltale sign of sunburn. Um, what's happening in the leaf is the sun is destroying the chlorophyll. So the sun's rays are very unforgiving on plants. So this is one of the many reasons, keeping a garden journal and understanding your local climate, how that impacts your garden, and it's so important. In warmer regions where the sun can be both friend and foe, you have to learn to balance the sun exposure. When you're planning out your garden, you don't just walk out and say, "Oh, there's a lot of sun here. We'll use this spot." You've got to watch what's around it, the different times of the day, how the sun rotates around your garden, and that will all help you plan out your garden properly to prevent certain illnesses. Preventing sunburned tomato leaves. Uh, you do we recommend, you don't have to prune your tomato plants. We have an article on the Farmer Sample on pruning your tomato plants. You don't have to do that, but a lot of people do. We recommend it. um, Leaves are essential for providing shade, so over pruning, like I've already said, can expose them to too much sun. So you can learn exactly how to stake them and exactly how to prune them on the farmer's land. Now, spotting sunburned tomato leaves is pretty straightforward once you know what to look for. The first clue is usually a change in color. Uh, they might start off as white. It's going to be yellow. It's going to be right around the edges, a lighter shade of green, and they will eventually, of course, turn brown and die because the chlorophyll that keeps them green is gone. They can appear in a few ways. They might appear thin. They might feel almost like paper. Um, they are, if you go, they also might feel thick and leathery. It depends on the variety of tomatoes that you have planted. Sometimes what looks like sunburn might actually be a sign of disease, so it's important to know what you're looking at. Diseases like early blight and septoria leaf spot can cause discoloration, and they're sometimes mistaken for sunburn, but the pattern and the progression of the leaf is how you can tell them apart. Now, how about preventing it? How can we prevent sunburned tomato leaves? Well, selecting the right tomato variety for your zone is crucial. Varieties that are resistant to common disease often have lush foliage, which naturally shields more of the plant from the harsh sunlight. So you want to look for tomato plants that have the label V or F on it. This indicates whether they are resistant to, I'm going to try to say this, I hope I say it right, verticillium wilt and fusarium wilt. Now, if I didn't say those right, I apologize, and you can correct me. That's me trying to pronounce those words. Um, Heirloom tomatoes, with their unparalleled flavors and diverse varieties, they don't necessarily have the same resistance to those funguses, the wilts that we just mentioned. Hybrids are often bred specifically to be disease resistant. While heirlooms may not be bred in disease resistance, they have thrived through generations. So they do have a resilience, and we only raise heirloom tomato varieties. The susceptibility of heirloom tomatoes to diseases can vary from variety to variety. We don't have a lot of diseases with our hybrid with our heirloom tomatoes, um, but if because we practice careful crop rotation, proper plant spacing, deep mulch gardening, and we prune our tomatoes to make sure there's plenty of airflow in there, plenty of sunlight in there. Um, Proper spacing, like I said, in the tomato garden is essential for good air circulation and the balanced sun exposure. This helps keep your plants healthy and less prone to losing their foliage, which protects against sunburn leaves. So, a good layer of organic mulch around your tomato plants serves multiple purposes. It helps prevent soil disease coming up. You don't ever want your tomato leaves touching the ground. Anything that touches the ground is just a highway for disease to come up from the ground, especially if you have wet soil. Incorporating organic fungicides like copper solutions into your routine can also help protect your plants. We have a recipe on the Farmer's Note in the article for this for our neem oil garden spray. Using shade cloth can be particularly significant. In Mississippi, we had a lean-to made out of shade cloth that in the afternoon I would go out and move over in front of the tomatoes just to protect them a little bit. Another way to protect your plants from sunburn: do not water your plant leaves. Water the soil, water at ground level, uh, water early in the morning. I like to water, if I have to water the garden, I like to water as the sun's coming up or right after it's come up. You don't want wet leaves and then the sun hitting those leaves and it dries them out. If you do water at night, watering at night increases the risk of disease. But if you do have to water at night, again, be careful to water only the soil. I always say this, and I'm going to say it again. Visit your garden at least once a day. You have to look at them. If you see the first signs of disease, sunburn, pest damage, any of those things, then you can act faster and you can save your plants. But if you don't go out there every day or more than once a day, we visit the garden morning and evening. They will help you prevent sunburn leaves. Now, your plant has sunburned leaves. What do you do? Look for the tomatoes with pale white or gray spots on them. Those are the tomatoes. The tomatoes themselves are still good to eat. You just cut away the sunburn spots. And this is on the tomato itself. Carefully prune. We've already talked about pruning. Keep as much healthy foliage as you possibly can to shade any remaining fruit. And be sure to remove and prune any leaves that come in contact with the mulch or the ground. Remember, like I said, it's a highway for disease. You don't want them up there. If your tomato plants are really suffering and they're already showing signs of sun scald, sunburn, um, go ahead and harvest your fruit, even if they're near ripening, when they're first glistening. And that is when the tomato starts to get change from green to red. It'll get almost white sometimes. It'll lighten up and then it'll change its color. Go ahead and pick them. Fried green tomatoes are excellent, and you can let them mature, in the house out of the sun. Consider shade. We've already talked about that. A 30% shade cloth is sufficient in most places to block the sun and prevent your tomato leaves and tomatoes from being sunburnt. Provide balanced nutrition. Not too much nitrogen, but sufficient potassium and phosphorus. A healthy plant can withstand stress and damage better than one that's not healthy. Consistent deep watering. Watering deep encourages the roots to go down into the soil and it keeps them from coming up. The soil is cooler down there. The moisture, they can absorb the moisture through their root systems, and it helps them withstand the heat of the day. We've already talked about the best time of day to water. A thick layer of organic mulch around your plants. We've talked about that, and something we tried a few years ago that we have been really impressed with, and that is these red trays. And I'll try to remember to put a link in the down here for them. If I can't, you can find them on Amazon. They are just red tomato trays. They slide up around the tomato. It reflects off of there. It helps them ripen. We think faster. It may be just our perception, but it also um, prevents bugs, pests from climbing up them. We've noticed that when we use those, we have fewer tomato hornworms and no damage from other pests. Companion planting, yay. Uh, you can create a beneficial microclimate for your tomatoes. Um, Planting taller crops like and sunflowers on the side where the afternoon sun comes down, and that way they cast shade onto your tomato plants. Um, it promotes healthy soil, biodiversity in your garden. Basil is even so they say it helps improve tomato flavor. And I can't say that's been my experience, but I plant it with it, so I'm not real sure what it would be like if I didn't plant it with it. Maybe I need to do some kind of experiment on that. We have a complete companion guide for tomatoes on the Farmer's Lamp too, so you can check out all those. Now, will sunburned tomatoes recover? Sometimes. If you are checking your garden and you see it early and you provide the shade, you provide the water, they have the nutrients they need, yes, they may fully recover. However, not all varieties react the same. Not um, all gardens are set up the same. So, I can't say yes, they will recover, but generally, as a rule, if you get to it early enough, they will recover. Um, Do sunburned tomato leaves affect production? Yes. A sunburned tomato plant whose leaves are all burned up will not mature the fruit. They're so concerned about repairing themselves. They think they're dying. So, photosynthesis, which is crucial for producing the energy, is being used to do other things. And because the leaves aren't there to absorb the sun to carry on the process of photosynthesis, then yes, your harvest is going to be much smaller. Okay. Does your soil type affect sunburn risk? It doesn't directly cause sunburn, but your quality of soil, which affects the plant's overall health, um, and makes your plant not as healthy, not as resilient. Um, Healthy soils provide the essential nutrients that your plants need to support them, support their root systems, where they can go deep and get the water. Um, so soil type may not be an exact sunburn risk, but it can contribute to your plant's overall health, which makes them more susceptible to sunburn. So, opting for resilient tomato varieties with ample foliage, providing shade, adequate water, regular monitoring, recognizing the early signs of tomato, and implementing those protective measures that we've talked about. There's a lot more detail on the article. Go over there and you can check out more if you need any more information. With these practices integrated into your garden routine, you will have uh, healthier plants and a greater harvest. We hope this helps you on your tomato gardening journey. Until next time, safe and happy journey.